Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins, an unassuming 1997 1-cent coin that turned out to be worth a staggering $34 million. You heard that right, $34 million for a single penny. At first glance, it looks like any other copper-plated zinc cent minted in Denver in the late 90s. But the story behind this coin is anything but ordinary. It involves a series of historical flukes, a secret vault, a retired U.S. Mint employee with a conscience, and a relentless collector who gambled everything on a hunch that would change his life forever. Grab your coffee, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride into the hidden world of coin collecting, federal secrets, and the incredible journey of a penny that became big money history. It all started in the summer of 2011, in the sweltering heat of Phoenix, Arizona. Henry Alvarez was rummaging through boxes of junk in his late uncle's storage unit. His uncle, Jerry, had been a recluse in his later years and passed away with few friends and no children. Jerry was known to collect a little bit of everything: comic books, coins, baseball cards, antique tools, basically anything that seemed out of place in a normal home. Most of it was junk, and Henry was almost ready to toss out the last box when he noticed a small, dusty, leather coin pouch. Inside were dozens of common-looking coins, nothing that stood out, except for one penny that felt oddly heavier than the rest. It had a dull shine, a little wear on Lincoln's face, and the tiny D mint mark on the right side under the date, 1997. Nothing about it screamed value, but Henry was a bit of a trivia nerd and remembered hearing that errors or rare mints could be worth a lot. So instead of throwing it out, he pocketed the coin. Weeks passed, and the penny sat forgotten in a drawer in Henry's kitchen. It wasn't until he was reorganizing and trying to decide what to keep or sell that he stumbled upon the penny again. This time, out of curiosity, he searched online for 1997 D penny rare value. And while nothing immediate popped out, one obscure forum mentioned rumors of a rare 1997 D penny that had never been confirmed. The rumor was that during a brief 2-week window in 1997, an experimental batch of cents was produced with a unique alloy blend due to a temporary materials shortage at the Denver Mint. Supposedly, these coins were to be destroyed after the experiment failed, but several allegedly made it into circulation. No photographic proof ever surfaced. It was the stuff of urban legends among serious coin collectors. Henry thought it was nonsense, but something kept nagging at him. He took the coin to a local pawn shop first. The man behind the counter gave him 10 cents for it with a smirk. "It's just a penny, man. Nothing special," he said. But Henry wasn't satisfied. He reached out to a local coin club and showed it to a semi-retired numismatist named Greg Willoughby. Greg took one look at the coin and stopped talking mid-sentence. He asked if he could keep it for a day to run tests. Henry agreed, thinking it was just standard practice. Greg returned the next day, pale and speechless. He asked Henry where he found the coin. Henry explained. Then Greg said something that changed everything. "This coin doesn't match the known metallurgical composition of any 1997 cent. It's about 15% heavier than it should be, the copper content is unusually high, and the design has minor anomalies that suggest it was struck using a prototype die." The numismatic world exploded once Greg leaked his findings anonymously on a private forum frequented by elite coin collectors and former Mint employees. The post was titled, "Confirmed 1997 D prototype penny exists," and included detailed photos and test results. Within hours, collectors from around the globe were speculating wildly. Could this be one of the mythical test strike pennies? Could it be connected to the long-standing rumors of a secret alloy blend from 1997? Meanwhile, Henry had no idea his coin had become the subject of international buzz. When he finally returned Greg's call and heard what was happening, he was floored. Greg warned him to be careful. If this coin was real, it was likely to attract serious attention, not all of it welcome. And boy, was he right. A private collector from Switzerland offered $1.2 million for the coin after just seeing photos. Henry declined. Then came a call from an anonymous buyer offering $3 million, cash. Still, he waited. Henry wasn't greedy, but he had a gut feeling this coin was something much, much bigger. That's when the story took a strange turn. A man named Louis Franklin, a former metallurgical technician at the Denver Mint, reached out anonymously through encrypted email. He claimed to have direct knowledge of the experimental batch. In 1997, there had been a major supply chain error involving the regular zinc core used in U.S. cents. For a brief time, the Mint authorized a temporary substitution using a copper-heavy alloy similar to the old pre-1982 pennies. It was supposed to be a short-term fix, and less than 500,000 of these coins were struck. But the entire batch was ordered to be destroyed once the original materials became available again. Only, according to Lewis, a single roll of 50 of these prototype coins was saved, hidden away by a now-deceased senior Mint employee who believed they might be historically valuable one day. Lewis said he had been trying to track down the coins for years, but every trail went cold. Until now. If Henry's coin was one of the 50, it would be worth a fortune. But there was one catch: the Mint had never acknowledged the experiment publicly. Possessing such a coin could lead to legal gray areas, possibly even seizure by the U.S. government if they deemed it property of the United States. Still, Henry pressed on. He hired a private security firm to protect the coin. It was placed in a temperature-controlled vault while a full metallurgical analysis was done by an independent lab. The results confirmed Lewis's claim. The coin was 97.8% copper, 2.1% tin, and 0.1% trace elements, totally inconsistent with post-1982 zinc-based cents. The physical weight also supported this. Furthermore, under high magnification, subtle dye variations were found, especially in Lincoln's beard and the shape of the D Mint mark. Then came the legal question: could Henry legally sell the coin? An attorney specializing in collectibles and intellectual property was brought in. After several weeks of correspondence with the U.S. Mint and the Department of Treasury, it was confirmed that the Mint had no current claims on the coin due to the lack of official records acknowledging the existence of the 1997 D experimental batch. Essentially, no one in the government could prove the coin was improperly taken, or that it ever existed. With legal hurdles cleared, the bidding war began. A Hong Kong-based collector offered $12.5 million. A Saudi prince reportedly upped the ante to $20 million. But the final bid came from an unexpected source: the Smithsonian Institution. They had been tracking the story quietly. In an effort to preserve one of the most mysterious pieces of U.S. coinage history, they negotiated with a consortium of private donors and offered $34 million to purchase the coin and put it on public display. Henry, who had grown increasingly attached to the coin's wild backstory, agreed under one condition: that the coin be accompanied by an exhibit telling the full story, not just the technical details, but the human side, including his Uncle Jerry's forgotten collection and the strange turn of fate that brought the coin to light. Today, the 1997 D1-cent coin sits behind triple-layer bulletproof glass in the Smithsonian's National Numismatic Collection. It's displayed next to a digital timeline of events, X-ray scans, and even a copy of the encrypted emails from Louis Franklin. Schoolchildren file past it daily, unaware that the tiny coin before them was once lost in a dusty box in a Phoenix storage unit. And as for Henry Alvarez? He used part of the money to start a scholarship fund in his uncle's name for students interested in American history and antiquities. He lives quietly now, far away from the media glare, occasionally checking in with collectors and answering emails from amateur numismatists who want to know what it feels like to discover a $34 million penny. So the next time you see a penny on the ground, think twice before you walk past it. You never know. It might be worth more than you can imagine. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more incredible tales from the world of rare finds and big money history. Next, imagine finding a penny, just one ordinary-looking coin, that turns out to be worth not $1, not $100, but a staggering $10 million. That's not a fantasy. That's the very real and shocking tale of the 2015 D1-cent coin that stunned the numismatic world and rewrote history books. If you've ever walked past a coin on the sidewalk and decided it wasn't worth the trouble to pick up, This story might make you think again. It all begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint, where in 2015, millions of 1-cent coins were struck with the now famous D Mint mark. These coins were never meant to be anything extraordinary. They were just another part of the routine production to support America's endless appetite for small change. However, among the sea of copper-plated zinc coins churned out that year, one stood out, not because of how it looked at first glance, but because of what happened after it left the mint. For years, the coin passed unnoticed, likely changing hands dozens or even hundreds of times, slipping through vending machines, grocery store counters, and the dusty corners of people's pockets. No one knew that history had been minted into metal until a humble coin collector from Ohio named Lenny Sanders spotted something strange one late evening in 2021. Lenny wasn't a professional numismatist. In fact, he worked full-time as a janitor in a local high school. But coins had always fascinated him, ever since his grandfather gave him an old cigar box filled with wheat pennies when he was 10. That passion had never faded, and now, in his mid-50s, Lenny still spent his weekends searching through bank rolls, flea markets, and estate sales, hoping for a rare find. That fateful evening, Lenny was organizing a batch of coins he'd picked up at a garage sale the weekend before. It was nothing special, just a Ziploc bag filled with loose change. But as he sorted them under the glow of a dusty lamp in his basement, his eye caught a penny that seemed off. It was a 2015 D penny, but there was something different about the texture and the sharpness of the design. He pulled out his magnifying glass, expecting to find a common die crack or perhaps some post-mint damage. Instead, what he discovered left him speechless. The coin had several anomalies. First, the lettering was slightly misaligned, and the D Mint mark looked like it had been doubled, but not in the usual, minor mechanical sense. It appeared intentional, deliberate, and extremely clean. Secondly, there was a microscopic flaw in Lincoln's collar that looked like a tiny initial. And most incredibly, the entire coin was missing its usual copper plating on one side, revealing an unusual silvery underlayer that didn't quite match the standard zinc core. Lenny knew he had found something different, but he had no idea just how different. He posted a few pictures online in a collector's forum, asking for thoughts. Most replies were polite but dismissive, until one user, who went by the handle CoinCryptid, messaged him privately. This user claimed to be a former Mint employee and asked to meet in person. Suspicious but curious, Lenny agreed to meet in a public place. The meeting would mark the start of one of the strangest and most lucrative journeys in coin collecting history. At a small coffee shop in Cleveland, Lenny handed over the coin for examination. The man, middle-aged, with graying hair and a nervous twitch, spent several minutes studying it with a jeweler's loupe before speaking. "This isn't a mistake," he whispered. "This is the ghost coin. The one they covered up." According to the man, who identified himself only as Walt, the coin was part of a secret experiment at the Denver Mint in 2015. The U.S. Mint had been testing new alloys in an attempt to reduce the cost of penny production. Several prototype batches were created using alternative materials, including one that involved a rare nickel-silver composite. These prototype coins were never supposed to enter circulation. They were supposed to be destroyed. But somehow, one managed to slip out. What made this coin especially unique wasn't just the composition, it was the signature embedded into the die itself. Walt claimed that one of the engravers, who had been working under immense pressure and mental strain, embedded his initials into Lincoln's collar as a form of protest. That engraver had mysteriously resigned shortly after the prototypes were made, and his name was quietly removed from mint records. Walt believed that only one coin with the initials and the silver alloy had ever made it out. Lenny was stunned. If true, his penny wasn't just rare, it was one of a kind. But how could he prove it? The next step was authentication. Lenny flew to California to visit one of the most respected coin grading companies in the country. The experts there took days to analyze the piece. Spectrographic testing confirmed that the alloy was unlike anything used in standard production pennies. The initials, under microscopic examination, were found to be intentionally engraved, not the result of damage. The doubling of the mint mark was also confirmed to be the result of a unique die error, not a common mechanical misalignment. When the final report came back, the verdict was clear. This was a unique experimental mint error with a deliberate engraving, never meant for public release. It was authenticated and graded as Mint State 68, an almost perfect score. The coin was placed into a sealed slab and returned to Lenny, who by now had become the center of attention in the coin collecting world. News of the coin spread like wildfire. Articles were published in coin magazines, newspapers, and eventually mainstream media. Everyone wanted to know more about the janitor from Ohio who'd found a multi-million-dollar penny. Offers began pouring in, first in the tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. But Lenny wasn't in a rush. He wanted to understand the full scope of what he had. That's when Sotheby's reached out. Their numismatic expert had reviewed the documentation and offered to handle the auction, estimating the final price could reach up to 7 figures. But when the bidding finally took place, the results shocked everyone. The final bid? $10 million. One bidder, whose identity was never officially disclosed, claimed the coin as the single most important U.S. cent of the 21st century. Rumors suggested the buyer was a tech billionaire with a passion for rare currency. Others speculated it was a private museum looking to build a secret collection of lost American history. Whatever the truth, the sale was finalized, and Lenny walked away with life-changing money. Lenny used the funds to retire early, travel the world, and start a foundation for underprivileged kids who shared his love of collecting. But he never lost his passion for coins. In fact, he continued hunting, even though he knew he'd likely never find anything quite like the ghost penny again. But the story doesn't end there. The discovery of the coin prompted investigations into the mint's activities in 2015. Freedom of Information Act requests were filed, and while most came back heavily redacted, one internal memo surfaced that mentioned unauthorized circulation of test coinage. Though the mint never officially confirmed the ghost coin's origin, the numismatic community widely accepted its authenticity. Books were written. Documentaries followed. And the legend of the 2015 D1-cent coin grew. It also reignited public interest in coin collecting. Searches through old piggy banks and change jars became a national hobby. Banks reported an increase in people asking for rolls of pennies. Online marketplaces were flooded with 2015 D pennies, though none ever matched the characteristics of Lenny's coin. Interestingly, several counterfeit versions of the ghost coin emerged shortly after the sale. Scammers tried to recreate the silver look and the initials using etching tools and altered metals. But experts were quick to warn the public. Only one was ever verified. And its whereabouts, since the private sale, remain unknown. Speculation continues to this day about where the coin is kept. Some say it's in a vault beneath a Silicon Valley estate. Others claim it's on display in a private collection in Dubai. A few believe the coin was bought purely as an investment, locked away for future resale. Whatever the case, it hasn't resurfaced since the auction. And maybe that's part of what makes it so alluring: the mystery of its existence, the rarity of its design, and the almost unbelievable fortune it brought to an ordinary man with an extraordinary eye for detail. Lenny's story is more than just a tale of luck. It's a reminder that history can be hiding in plain sight. That even the most common things, a penny in this case, can carry with them the weight of secrets, stories, and untold value. It reminds us that being curious, observant, and passionate can sometimes lead to the most unexpected treasures. So the next time you get change at the store, or spot a coin lying on the sidewalk, don't dismiss it too quickly. Who knows? You might just be holding the next big piece of hidden history in your hand. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this unbelievable story of the $10 million penny, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more amazing discoveries. There's always more history waiting to be uncovered, sometimes, right in the palm of your hand. Last, a little coin from 1994, a seemingly ordinary deminted 1-cent coin, would rise to become one of the most expensive coins in modern history, worth an astonishing $21 million. So sit back, get comfortable, And let us take you on the mind-blowing true story behind the 1994 1-cent coin, how it vanished, reappeared, and turned lives upside down. It all begins not in a bank or a collector's showroom, but in a small, aging farmhouse outside of Pueblo, Colorado. It's the kind of place you drive past without ever thinking twice. Old barn out back, a creaky porch swing in the front, and a mailbox that's more rust than metal. But inside that house lived a man named Jerry Watkins, a 73-year-old retired machinist and self-proclaimed penny hoarder. He had spent decades collecting copper coins, storing them in glass jars, wooden crates, even shoeboxes that filled his attic to the brim. Now Jerry wasn't doing it for the money. He did it for the history. Every coin, to him, told a story. He loved the subtle imperfections, the worn edges, the way the metal caught the light differently with each year's mint. But one coin, buried deep in his collection, would turn out to be more than just history. It would be destiny. It was a cold winter evening in late January of 2023 when Jerry's granddaughter, Rachel, came to help clean out the attic. The family had been urging him to declutter, to start selling off some of the collection. Rachel had always been fascinated by the coins but never thought they were worth much, until she spotted something unusual. A coin that shimmered slightly differently from the rest. It looked almost too pristine, too symmetrical, and yet, something was off. The date read 1994. And below the date, the familiar D mint mark indicating it had been struck in Denver. But what caught her attention wasn't the mint mark, it was the way Lincoln's profile looked. A slightly doubled image around the jawline, an unusual gloss that didn't match its supposed age, and more importantly, a microscopic die crack that ran across the rim of the coin. Rachel didn't know exactly what she had, but she knew it wasn't like the others. She tucked it into her coat pocket, and later that night, began researching it online. Forums, collector sites, grading company articles, every rabbit hole you can imagine, she went down. That's when she discovered something shocking. There had been rumors for years in coin collecting circles about a rare 1994 cent with multiple unexplained anomalies. A coin that vanished from the Denver Mint's inventory records. A coin that should never have made it into circulation. And a coin that some believed, if it ever resurfaced, would be worth millions. She had to be sure. So, she contacted the American Numismatic Association. They recommended she send it to a private expert, Dr. Harold Kemp, a former Mint employee and one of the leading authorities on coin authentication. Within a week, the coin was in Dr. Kemp's lab in Virginia, undergoing an exhaustive series of tests: metal composition analysis, dye verification, strike pressure evaluation, and even a radiation scan to date the materials. The results were stunning. This was not just any penny. It was a test strike, an experimental coin never meant to leave the mint. Known internally as Test Batch 47B. These were part of a secret program the Mint conducted in the early 90s to experiment with alternate metal blends to reduce production costs. The batch included only 50 test coins, all of which were supposed to be destroyed. Except, somehow, one of them slipped through the cracks. And now, nearly 3 decades later, it had emerged again, in a jar, in an attic, in Colorado. The coin was composed of a unique alloy blend, 60% copper, 30% zinc, and 10% a rare earth metal not disclosed to the public. It weighed slightly less than a regular penny and had magnetic properties that standard 1-cent pieces didn't. But more than the science, it was the story, the mystery, that drove its value into the stratosphere. Word spread like wildfire. Coin World magazine published a cover story titled, "The Penny That Wasn't Supposed to Exist." Collectors began bidding before it even hit auction. And Jerry, the man who had quietly collected coins for decades with no real concern for profit, suddenly found himself at the center of a media frenzy. Television interviews, newspaper articles, radio shows, everyone wanted to talk to the man with the $1 million penny. But Jerry wasn't interested in fame. He was more concerned about Rachel, and what she would do with it. To him, the coin was hers. She had found it, she had done the work. And she had awakened the world to its existence. By the time it was authenticated and certified by PCGS with a one-of-a-kind grade designation, MS-70 experimental alloy. The stage was set for one of the most exciting coin auctions in U.S. history. The auction was scheduled for September 2023 at Stack's Bowers Galleries in New York City. Security was intense. The coin traveled in a bulletproof glass case, escorted by 2 armed guards and tracked via satellite from Denver to New York. Bidding opened at $1 million. Within seconds, it jumped to $5 million. Then $9. Then $13. By the time the final gavel fell, the winning bid stood at an unprecedented $21 million. The buyer? An anonymous tech billionaire from Singapore with a known obsession for acquiring impossible collectibles, things that aren't supposed to exist, but somehow do. And just like that, the 1994 1-cent coin made history. But that's only the beginning of this story, because what happened after the auction was even more surprising. Inspired by the attention and the mysterious nature of the coin, independent researchers and coin experts began revisiting the Denver Mint's activities from the early 90s. And what they found raised more questions than answers. Internal memos from 1993 hinted at a fire in one of the Mint's storage vaults. Some records were destroyed. Others were rewritten. Employees from that era recalled hearing about 47B. But no one could confirm how many coins were actually made or how one could have possibly escaped destruction. Speculation ran wild. Some believed an employee had smuggled it out as a souvenir. Others thought it had accidentally been mixed into a shipment of circulating coins. There were even conspiracy theories suggesting the Mint had deliberately released it to test market reactions. But regardless of how it happened, the fact remained: one coin had survived. One coin had become the stuff of legend. And it had changed not just the lives of Jerry and Rachel, but the entire numismatic world. With their newfound wealth, Jerry and Rachel didn't retreat into luxury. They launched a foundation, the Watkins Numismatic Education Initiative, dedicated to helping young people learn about coin collecting, history, and the incredible stories that small pieces of metal can hold. They donated to libraries, created scholarships, and hosted school tours across Colorado. Rachel went on to write a book titled 1 Cent to 21 Million, The Coin That Changed Everything, which became a New York Times bestseller. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the mystery, the legacy, and the wonder of discovery. Even years later, the coin continues to draw crowds whenever it's displayed. It's been on exhibition at the Smithsonian, featured in documentaries, and even sparked a fictionalized Netflix series about rare coins with hidden secrets. And to this day, collectors still check their change a little more closely, hoping they might stumble upon the next impossible find. So the next time you see a penny on the ground, think twice before you pass it by. Because history tells us that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprise. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more incredible tales of rare finds, lost treasures, and unbelievable true stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Until next time, keep your eyes open, because you never know what might be hiding in plain sight.